There's a situational awareness that you're going to have with every experience. And that situational awareness is going to be based upon the experiences that you've had within your life. But mainly the awareness is based upon the awareness that you require for your current living conditions, both in society and psychologically. So people who encounter certain experiences are not going to be equipped to react, respond, engage in particular realities or experiences. The system is aware of this and pushes this lack of awareness across the board through your education, through flooding your brain with social media junk food, through literal junk food and literally slowing you down in life, passing that down to your children, your next generations, installing that into your previous generations with your grandparents still stuck on these old television shows, these old frames of mind, giving them labels and teams to be about, feeling a sense of pride in these old ways of thinking and being, calling them boomers and giving them names and titles. The list goes on and on and on about how we are conditioned to have a lack of experience, a lack of awareness. And this awareness or lack of awareness puts you in a particular category from my perspective of how you engage in society, because there's a definite attack on the way we engage in society. There's an attack on the way we engage with ourselves. We know that there's an attack on the way we engage with our family members, with the people that we relate to, our loved ones. So-called black people are aware, very aware, that there's an attack on how we relate to our history. They have erased our history from the history books. They have erased our culture and our connection to land, to each other, to the resources, to the cosmology, to nature. These connections have been severed on purpose, because when you have these severed connections, you have nothing to connect to. And if you have nothing to connect to, you'll connect to the easiest thing there is to connect to. This is why the mainstream media exists. This is why all these political agendas, these woke movements exist. This is why the New Age community exists. I've explained with all these communities, all these perspectives. It's the same way with Black Lives Matter. It gets you involved in your emotional breakdown or awareness of what's going on. And when you're in your emotions, you're not going to allow yourself to get into your logic. You're not going to allow yourself to get into your wisdom, if there is any wisdom out there, because wisdom itself has been removed from the overall awareness. Wisdom has been replaced with this idea of intellectual authority from the university system. So wisdom, ancestral wisdom, doesn't matter anymore. They've pretty much outlawed it. They've banned it. And it's not pretty much. They have literally banned ancestral wisdom when they criminalize things like alternative medicine, criminalizing psychedelic medicine, criminalizing natural herbs that expand your awareness. Your awareness is a very definite threat to the control of this system. This is why the awareness that so-called Black Americans have about their connection to this land needs to be killed, needs to be stifled. They have to be labeled Black, Negro, colored, person of color, savages, natives, nigger, darkies, pickaninnies, coons, spooks, boy. Black and African American is just the latest shit. This is a concerted effort to keep you away from the awareness of yourself. Nothing other than that. Without question. No other people in the whole fucking world have been labeled and mislabeled as we have. And there is an intention behind that. And so-called white people don't want you to know about that. They don't even want you to question this. Just like in the live chat and other live chats, in the videos when I bring up these conversations, it ain't got shit to do with them. When you're talking about expanding your mind, breaking these curses that have been put upon you and your family members, generations upon generations, if you bring that up, these cowards hide behind their keyboard when you're trying to empower and enlighten your own people, your family. These cowards stand up there and say things like, well, we're all being attacked right now. It's not just black people. It's not black and white. We ain't talking about your little funky ass. Ain't got shit to do with you. If somebody was in a therapy session with their therapist and they're going over the information, the roots of where this shit comes from, would you step your little funky ass in that damn meeting and say some shit like, well, excuse me, everybody's dealing with this. We're all being attacked by the shit. No, you would sit your little stupid ass out there and wait until it's your turn to deal with the fuck you got to deal with. But since people are empowered behind the walls of these keyboards and social media, they think they have the authority to just step in there and say whatever they want, whenever they want to you when you're doing what you got to do for yourself and your people. No. So-called white people with these perspectives that they just push upon you in your moment of expanding your awareness, they're going to have a very rude awakening coming up. Because if this was happening in person, in real life, they wouldn't have a fucking word to say. And you know this. They would sit there quiet and scared because if they did say anything, they knew they would have to be accountable for their fucking words. But no, when the computer's in front of them, they're the most knowledgeable and strongest people in the whole world. They know everything about everything. And if you respond to them, they will immediately go into their emotional body, cower like the fucking cowards that they are, and try to make you look a certain way, doing the exact same thing the system does. And this is why I'm bringing up this video right now, because this will give you somewhat of an awareness of the kind of things that you're going to have to deal with and the people that you're going to be dealing with when you start to engage in these conversations, or just when you see reality overall. For people who know, for people who've been following my channel, you already know this, but sometimes it's better to put these perspectives, this awareness into a more concise breakdown. I've known for experience for myself and other people at the same time. I'm not concerned with the people who are completely unaware of these things. This is for people to get a little bit of a breath of fresh air when they see something that they've been feeling or hear something that they've been feeling for so long but haven't really put it into words or heard anybody else say that. That's the majority of the reason why I make these videos, for people who are unaware. Because I like that feeling. I love the feeling of hearing something that I've been thinking and feeling for so long from somebody else. It's a great feeling, especially when you don't have the ability or the surroundings to share that information. Sometimes you can't verbalize this out loud with somebody else, and you're going to miss certain points because you learn things when you verbalize things. You learn things when somebody else verbalizes things. So if you're having trouble with the information that I'm sharing in these videos, ultimately, this information isn't for you. It might be there to trigger something, but it's not for you if you're having difficulty with understanding where I'm coming from. Because it's not where I'm coming from, ultimately. It's where millions and millions of other people are coming from. You just haven't been put in that situation. And certain people are kept from those situations. So-called white people in the Western world are kept from the situational awareness of what so-called black people have to go through every day. And they're kept out of that awareness because their ancestors are a part of adding to where we are in our awareness today. The history books that are in the schools right now, if your kids are going to school right now, they are learning a history. They are learning information that has nothing to do, ultimately, when you understand that there's an intention to withhold information, to withhold evidence. So if there is corruption in that education system, and you know that they are withholding evidence, look at it as if it was a court case, and you're sending your kids to court, and these fucking assholes are withholding evidence. They own the court. They own the lawyers. They own the information. They own everything. They own the prisons. They own the laws. You're sending your kids to court and they are withholding evidence. The deck is stacked against these kids from kindergarten to their senior year in high school and beyond. They get a higher level of mind control in these so-called higher institutions. This is why they have to call this shit higher education, high school. It's no different than smart water, smart car, smart this, smart that. They have to label it because if they label it through their intellectual authority that they have over you and your ability to think for yourself, through all of that, you believe them with your emotions because they have trained you to view and experience reality with and through your emotions. And when you're limited to your emotional body, you will not allow yourself to go any further than the information that is comfortable within that emotional body. So people who live beyond the emotional body will be a threat to you. This is why we are attacked on a daily basis. This is why you cannot have conversations with certain people every day. Because they are maintaining a level of ignorance, a lack of awareness to maintain control over the masses. And these levels of awareness are going to mirror your own personal awareness. Because there's a macro awareness and a micro awareness. And before you get to higher levels of macro awareness, you have to first accomplish or reach certain levels of micro awareness. It's just like growing up from your childhood, infancy to adolescence to becoming an adult to becoming an elder and having the wisdom through the experience and the intelligence that you have received over time. Wisdom doesn't exist anymore because wisdom has been replaced with the intelligence, the intellectual authority intelligence through the university system. They have outlawed wisdom. When they outlawed alternative medicine, they outlawed a part of your great-great-great-grandmother, your great-great-great-grandfather, and everybody since then, and everybody before that. When they're generating all these emotional-based perspectives of reality that you see every day with these soft-ass people who are talking in these soft-ass movements, they're doing that on purpose to keep you from going in to the next level of awareness, to maintaining your consumption with the emotional body and the emotional awareness. And each time you get into another level of awareness, you're going to have to deal with that. I went into the military at 17 years old because I had no awareness of what that military was doing, of what that government was doing. I had no experience. I had no people around me to share that information of how corrupt and how fucked up that system was. From high school to family members to friends. Either they were telling me I was stupid for going in the army, which was mostly the people who were shaming and guilting us when we went into the army from the high school. They were caught in their emotions and they allowed themselves, instead of sharing the wisdom and awareness with us about the decision we were making, which we could have still changed, instead of sharing that with us, they decided to shame and guilt us. And we learned nothing. That's the intention there. When they get you in your emotional body, nothing happens. You will learn nothing. Family members did the same thing for the most part, mostly on the other end, the opposite end, pushing you. Oh, you're doing such a good thing. Good for you. Because they know how hard it is to live in reality. They don't care about the shit that we're going to have to deal with. They're concerned with your well-being. And it's such a fucking oxymoron because they're concerned with your well-being, so they send you to be a cog in a war machine. They send you to fucking go die. They're proud of you. And sure enough, a year after I go into the army, 9/11 jumps off. So they're thinking after you're done, you're going to have a job, they're thinking what you need to do to be successful in this world of enslavement. They're proud of you. And then obviously there's the pride of, you making that decision for you to serve your country and all that shit. But that's just a show mostly anyway. They don't really give a fuck about their country. Nobody. That's a movie fairy tale version. It's this American dream of, going in there. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't exist in a child mind, like a 17, 18-year-old child who's just like, I want to do this. Because that's definitely how it was for the most part in my head. I didn't have any wisdom or awareness of all this other shit. Only thing I was thinking was, I don't have any money. My friends are about to go. We're going to do this. We'll have some money after we're done. We'll have some resources. We'll have some experiences. And that'll be it. That's as far as it goes. And that's where it's the job of your elders to come in and say, okay, have a seat. Let me tell you what's going on with that world. Because you're not going to learn this in the education system. Your teachers are not going to tell you this. But we don't have those people anymore. We have ego-based, emotionally driven, out of balance, wisdomless elders who are only concerned with the same shit that they were concerned with when they were in their 20s and 30s. Because that's where the shit stops. There's no sense of self-education after that. They're only concerned with how they look in society. So they will pass that level of awareness or lack thereof down to the next generation, and so on and so forth. And these levels of awareness are levels mostly that are available to people who get past that limitation program, who are no longer limited by their own micro versions of experience that are getting in the way of deeper levels of awareness on the micro and the macro. Like I said, you can't go into jumping layers of macro awareness until you first deal with the micro. You can't at least go into the depths of the macro until you process that micro perspective. Because when you view that macro perspective, you're only going to be able to view so much of the macro perspective based upon the eyes that you have and the experience that you have and the awareness that you have that are of the micro eyes, the micro awareness. So when you up yourself, you'll up your perspectives of everything going on around you. And the same thing goes for people. If you up yourself, you're going to up the people around you, at least parts of the micro of what's around you. The system is very much aware of this. So when they have large groups of people coming together, like in the education, in the schools, this is why they have everything based upon conformity. They can't speak to each other. They can't think for themselves. They are only there. It's very dangerous to have these groups of people together and have them think for themselves. So they consume their time, consume their energy for years, making them not think for themselves, making them submit to the information that is given to them by the authority. We call them teachers. We call them administration, the principals, all this other stuff. Anything that they say is basically coming from God, the God of Western reality. You're in a religion called democracy, called the Western world, called manifest destiny, called the first world, called the new world, called the American dream. These are not levels of awareness. It's like the education system. You don't have to be super smart. You just have to have a good memory to repeat what these robots are implanting into your mind. Memory is not intelligence. Memory is part of intelligence. Memory is not intelligence, though. Intelligence is intelligence. When you're in the education system, it's all about memory. You don't really have to think. They're judging you on the tests that you take and the information that you can provide, regurgitate, after they shoved it down your throat. So, to sum the introduction up, these 5 levels of societal awareness are going to mirror the level of self-awareness that you have, the level of inner work that you have completed, because you cannot have that perspective until, at least to the depths, you can't have that perspective until you have first cleared out all the garbage that you have in the way of seeing the depths of those perspectives. That stuff that's in the way are lessons that you have to clear through on the micro level. If you do not do that, your macro awareness will be clouded. This haziness of your macro awareness is a very definite benefit to the system that is attempting to control you on every single layer of your existence. Fear is a big part of that control system because fear keeps you from venturing into the deeper layers of awareness of yourself and whatever it is that you're paying attention to. A very good example of this is what I've shared with dreams over the years. Nightmares are a big part of children's dreams because you yourself, your systems, are aware of your limitations based upon the emotional body. You're not allowing yourself to go to the depth of dreams because you don't have the experience to deal with whatever you're going to experience in those dreams because your lack of awareness, your lack of experience in the waking space. So nightmares and fear within those nightmares are a way to not only keep you from going too far so you don't short circuit yourself, but are a way to allow you to organically gain this experience and gain this awareness and challenge you to push through these emotions like fear and these limitations that come from those emotions like fear. So when you have a lack of fear beyond the realms of this experience, you cannot be controlled, which will open up the doors to tidal waves of awareness, a wealth of information. When you become aware of your connections to a reality beyond this experience, nothing within this experience can have any control over you anymore. This is why they had to generate an entire false universe for you to be afraid of. Afraid of meteors, afraid of asteroids, afraid of other aliens coming to take you over, afraid of super volcanoes exploding, afraid of the experience. Everything in this experience from their perspective is designed to destroy you. Nothing here is really designed to be in relation with you. The sun, the moon, the stars, the wandering stars, the earth, the trees, the elements, everything in nature, nothing is here to help or teach you anything, which is what your ancestors were dialing into. Nowadays, in the new world, in the more evolved from monkey Darwinian monkey evolution, in their eyes, they are the peak of not only intellectual intelligence, they are the peak of so-called human intelligence. This is the shit that you have to deal with when you bring up conversations that challenge the authority of intelligence coming from the university system. All that pride and arrogance that these people have when you talk about the nonsense of gravity and the Big Bang and the theory of evolution and all that other shit that they push on a regular basis, when you bring up how that is just total nonsense and bullshit, they have this, please, give me a break. What do you mean? You're smarter than the whole university system? Where do you come off? Come on, guy. That whole, like, where did they get that fucking shit from? Where did that come from? It's because they have complete control over these people. Their pride comes from the so-called intelligence of the system. And that pride, the emotion of pride, is what keeps people largely from moving on to the next level. They're so happy, they're so proud of where they are. Look at your Democrats, look at your Republicans, look at your progressives. They're so fucking proud of being a progressive, so proud of being a Democrat in relation to a Republican. Nowadays, so proud of being Republican in relation to the Democrat. When you're that proud of something like that, you're not gonna fucking go anywhere. You're only gonna go as far as that dumbass group of people are gonna allow you to go. You're completely disempowered. And your movement is only gonna be based upon where they allow you to move. So this information that I'm sharing and the way that this information is being shared is to help people expand beyond the limitations of this reality, at least in an awareness level, or at least open the door to get there. Because once you become aware of the energies beyond the intelligence or so-called intelligence of this reality, once you become aware of yourself existing beyond this reality and within and as this reality, not being disconnected, when you have that detached, complete awareness, which sounds weird, but it's a thing, because you can't hold on to infinity. You have to have a level of detachment. But the awareness of infinity, the awareness of all that is beyond this realm and within this realm, is a level of awareness, is a wisdom, is an intelligence. It's a way to break through, one way to break through those emotional bodies, those emotional limitations. When you break through all of that, when you challenge all the shit that's holding you back, when you challenge that from the perspective beyond fear, without limitation, you're getting into a space where that power becomes your core. And when that power, that intelligence, that wisdom, that connection, that awareness, when that becomes your core, you are unfuckwithable. You'll be able to see things before they happen. You'll become aware of things before they even appear. You can see things in people before they see it in themselves. And the list goes on and on and on and on of the levels of awareness that come from letting go of that shit. So I'll start from the ground up. What everybody experiences on a regular, everyday basis once you graduate from high school and even before that. The mainstream perspective, the mainstream awareness. You become aware that there's a mainstream from childhood, from cartoons, from your parents watching the news, from your parents going to school and telling you everything that they learned, from TV, from movies. You are aware of a single stream of information being pumped into your reality. And the very fact that there is a single stream of information being pushed into your reality is a level of authority. Inherently comes a level of authority with that. Because why would they do something like that? Why would they share information that wasn't true? After all they've done for the world, the first world, the American dream people, the manifest destinies of the new world, they wouldn't lie on the news. They wouldn't lie in the education system. Your politicians wouldn't lie to you. How dare you challenge this? Oh, of all they've done for you, and you just can't blindly accept what they say and what they believe. How dare you? How dare you? So yeah, there's a mainstream awareness that is a frequency of experience that the system hopes and prays that people stay within, and they will manipulate every single algorithm of your reality to maintain that space. And every time you start to challenge or escape from that reality, you will be hit harder and harder the farther away you go from that stream of information, from that stream of belief systems. This is why I call the mainstream level of awareness the NPC politics, because it involves the mainstream politics, but it also involves this not thinking for yourself in any capacity. Because even if you think you're thinking for yourself, when you're talking about this information, the information is itself is a style of not thinking for yourself. So if you're thinking for yourself in relation to mainstream information, you're not thinking for yourself. You're thinking for the information that isn't for you. Mainstream shit ain't for you. So if you think you're intelligent about mainstream information, you're intelligent about the bars in the prison. You're intelligent about the threads in the mattress that you lay on every day in your jail cell. You're intelligent about the food that you eat every time they let you out of your cage to go eat it with all the other mainstream prisoners. And anytime there's a conflict with those prisoners, the prison guards are going to step in and fuck you up. They will handle the situation because you gave them the authority over you, over all of you, by buying in to that world. So, NPCs, politics, mainstream education, mainstream entertainment, mainstream belief systems, mainstream religions, mainstream relationships, mainstream love, all of the above is the mainstream level of awareness limitation program. Level 1. Level 2, progressive awareness. This has always existed for the most part as a group with the New Age perspective and people just doing it on their own outside of the Democrats versus Republicans. Largely, progressive is not really different from mainstream because progressive awareness is really just an extension of mainstream awareness, because progressive awareness is aware of parts of the mainstream awareness that most mainstream awareness people are not aware of. But since it's based upon the mainstream awareness, you're still limited to the mainstream awareness. But since it exists somewhat separate from the mainstream, and they're pushing it like that, like I said, for a reason. When they create these groups of people, they need to create these groups because Democrats and Republicans wasn't going to work anymore. There was family members 20, 25 years ago that were talking to me, young family members, 20s and 30s, talking to me about how proud they are about being a part of the Democratic Party. They're Democrats. And it was a sense 20 something years ago, it was a sense of pride to be a Democrat in reference to Republicans. It was put out there. Slowly but surely, the consciousness of the masses of people started to become aware of how fucked up this shit was. And they started to see that there's no difference between a Democrat and a Republican. In fact, the Democrats were doing the Republican shit back in the day before the Republicans were. The Democrats were the most racist and fucked up towards our people before Republicans took on that role. So progressives are based upon the mainstream, limited by the mainstream, but their overall perspective is a perspective of seeing what's going on from a repairable observation. They think these systems, or the system overall, is repairable. Their main perspective is the bad apple perspective. It's not the system that's bad, it's just a few bad apples in there. As long as we just take care of those bad apples, everything will be okay. So remain aware of this little bit of corruption that's out there, the little bit of corruption in the systems. Just that tiny little sprinkling of corruption within our system. Why? Because, there are going to be corrupt people out there. You can't do anything about that. They're going to exist like that. So you just have to be aware of it and hold strong to your Democratic and Republican values, and you face it. Or nowadays, hold strong with your progressive values and your awareness of what's going on, and you just fight hard to repair this system. Completely unaware of the inherent corruption and the intention within the system overall. Completely unaware. That's the main thing that separates level 2 from level 3. And level 3 is the unrepairable corruption. The unrepairable systems that are out there. Corruption awareness. On this level, these individuals have broken through the mainstream. They've broken through the progressive. They see the limitations of the mainstream. They see the limitations of the progression. They know that the system is corrupt from the ground up. But they're largely just floating out there, realizing that these systems are unrepairable, but still limiting themselves to the power of the system. So they are aware that the systems are unrepairable, but they want the system or the people running that system to create another system that doesn't have that corruption. So like you could see in the last group, they might be aware of some corruption that's going on, but they want that system to repair itself. They still have those American dream values and that first world shit going on. But when you break out of that, you really don't have a strong sense. This is where you start to get into your sense of self and you start to generate power from the inside out. But you're not completely there yet because you don't have a foundation to put down yet. So in order to be comfortable in that space, what people do is a lot of the times they get consumed with their emotional body. So this is like what I would compare to where I was in the Occupy movement. I was aware of the corruption. I was angry. I was mad beyond progression. I'm not expecting shit from there. But at the same time, I don't know where the fuck I'm really trying to move. I have zero ideas of where to go or what to do, but I am fucking angry. I'm angry. I'm aware of the corruption. I'm angry that it's happening. I'm aware of what's happening to our people, but there's still a level of emotional barriers that are there, keeping me from going into the space of empowering myself or moving any further. So what I do is get around other people who are like that. And this is where the Occupy movement came in. We're angry. We're aware of this corruption. We know that these assholes are trying to make it seem like they want to repair it. We're angry. But we really don't see the intelligence behind this corruption. We're unaware for the most part of the intention and the focus towards a particular group of people. Not to say that all people are not subjected to these attacks, only saying that there is an intention out there. So the generic awareness that comes when you're in the corruption awareness, this unrepairable systems awareness, what people do is that they fill in the blanks with this idea of we're all attacked. We're all being attacked right now. That's where the core is. The core is we are all being attacked. We are all subjected to this corrupt system, and we have to do something about it. The equal playing field of attackness there is what exists in that level of awareness. Why? Because largely people in this group have only researched and are consumed by the research that shines a light on the corruption. And it's just another rabbit hole. All of these levels of awareness are rabbit holes. You can't go to the next level of awareness until you dive into the depths and get to the bottom of that rabbit hole. So the bottom of the rabbit hole of the corruption or unrepairable systems is venturing in, opening the door to realizing the intention, the attacks on the people that predate the attacks of today. That's what separates the progressive from the corrupt awareness. You realize that this has been a systematic attack on many different groups of people over time, specifically, and having a very definite focus on specific groups of people over time. People in the progressives, they don't care about that. All they see is human, America, progress. That's all they care about. This is why they call themselves progressives. It's not because they're progressive compared to the mainstream. They call themselves progressives because all they care about is progress, moving forward. Don't deal with the corruption. Just do something that looks like progression next to the corruption. When you're getting into the corruption awareness, you're starting to open the door to having to deal with that corruption, but you don't know the depths of the corruption yet. You're just angry. So corruption awareness is a transition point between progressive, being connected to the system, and being completely disconnected from the system and dealing with the system. And that's the next level of awareness, which is systemic awareness. The system. You're aware that there's inherent corruption. Not just the fact that there is corruption, but that corruption has an intention. It's been there. It's the design. The corruption is interwoven into the design. It was designed to be corrupt. So when they had Manifest Destiny, the American Dream, the Industrial Revolution, and all this other shit that they sold to you as the next best thing, as the best thing since sliced bread, all this shit that you believe in, going to the moon, selling you microwaves and all the shit that was invented that you love and adore and that's a part of your amazing life right now. All that shit was designed to kill you, to make you sick, to install disease, to slow you down, to fatten you up, to confuse you, to install more chaos. This is what the mainstream media, this is what social media and the education system is, to separate you from that which empowers you across the board with intention, the intention to do that. But you see it from a perspective of them doing something of benefit for you. They're providing a beneficial service for you. And they've always had that benevolent intention for you. No, that benevolent shit died levels and levels of awareness ago. It never existed in the first place. But you won't know that until you dive into the depths of what's out there and unveil it for yourself on the micro level. You can't see beyond the horizon until you see yourself looking at that horizon. You have to go beyond the horizon that they set for you. And you can't go there until you strengthen yourself with this micro awareness. And that's just another way of explaining the importance of venturing into the information itself. So I'll go through them again before I go to the last one. Mainstream NPC politics. Number 1, level 2, progressive, repairable systems. Believing that this system is repairable. Completely unaware of the intention to destroy you and profit off of that destruction. Corruption, level 3, unrepairable systems. They're aware of the unrepairable systems, but they don't have the information of what to do to repair themselves after having experienced the corruption of that system. So they're largely caught up in their emotional body and they will lash out, but they don't know what to do. And I'm saying they from a perspective of myself, my own experience. Level 4, systemic awareness. Systemic awareness is to realize that there's an inherent corruption. It's inherent in the design. It was never designed to be for the people. It was always designed to be for a small group of people. And like I said in previous videos, this small group of people was central to so-called white people. So they developed laws that protected white people and that imprisoned and enslaved so-called black people. White people, so-called white people, were the soldiers for these levels of awareness, this corruption. They were the beneficiaries that will usher in these belief systems and be the example for other people to sit and follow, knowing that since they don't fit the criteria of what they're trying to be like, they will never reach that level of success. So-called black people will never reach the level of success of so-called white people because the institution of whiteness is exclusive. They've written it down in books. This is what your Darwinian evolution of the supremacy of the Aryan race is.
Darwin single-handedly developed the controversial theory of human evolution, which was his belief that man came from monkeys, and then his system of natural selection, which included a heavy flux of racial derogatory.
Since 1859, that's when Charles Darwin introduced Origin of Species, by natural selection and the favored human races. Did you know that today they only report half the title that Charles Darwin wrote? His title had to do with favored human races. assigning supremacy to the Aryan race, all others being inferior. How many knew that? Only a handful. His book was racist, and that was the basic purpose for writing it.
Those of you that say Black Lives Matter, I feel sorry for you. Do you really believe you have a black life? Do you want me to read to you the meaning of black? Who called you black? Shouldn't you have rejected that from the beginning? A contradiction, a bundle of contradiction. Black means the absence of color. Absence of color. Absence of good. Absence of light. Absence of direction. That's the meaning of black. Black is not a color. It is the absence of color. Don't you understand it? They keep laughing at you as you call yourself black. They keep laughing at you. Open any dictionary, find out the meaning of black, and tell me if you find anything good, and you are not black. You got to change it. The same way Negro became a racial slur, black should be labeled a racial slur when it is used in connection with you.
But when they promote it to you, they're saying that we're all the same. You can do it. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, black man. You can do it. You Negroes can be just as successful as us. But if you become as successful as us, or more successful, we'll burn your fucking shit to the ground. We'll blow your shit up. We'll kill your whole family. That seemed like a good deal to you? White people said, hell yeah! And it was a rhetorical question for us. Oh, we don't care about what you say. We're going to burn your shit down anyway. So, level 4, systemic inherent corruption. You're aware of the intention within the system. The system overall is corrupt, and it's been designed that way. And you can't become aware of this systemic corruption until you empower yourself with a connection, for the most part, or at least opening the door to a connection to your ancestors. How historically this system has been corrupt against people and specific groups of people over time. That's the main thing there, because the next level of awareness is level 5, which is the empowered awareness. You're no longer subject to the limitations of the emotional body of being aware of the corruption of the system itself, the intentions behind that. You've detached yourself from that world for the most part. You've gotten to a space of, well, I see the corruption. I've seen that generations upon generations have been subjected to this corruption. Why am I allowing myself to be emotionally involved in something that's been happening for generations upon generation? It's absurd. Not only is it absurd, but it's very egotistical to allow yourself to become emotionally involved in something that's been happening for hundreds of years. You will not be aware of the ego in that and the limitations within that until you are aware of the fact that this has been going on specifically against particular groups of people for hundreds of years. It has only grown into affecting the majority of people in recent times. But since people are unaware of that previous attack and the intention within that corruption years prior, they will project onto you with your emotions and say that you're wrong for even talking about the corruption being focused upon your group of people. They have nowhere to put that information. They can't deal with it. So they project onto you as if something's wrong, because if they don't do that, that uncomfortable feeling of something being wrong will have to be owned by them, and they are the ones in the wrong. So to protect them from being the ones in the wrong, they project onto you. And that's what happens when people are still subjected to that emotional body and their ego in observing these levels of awareness. So, level 5, once again, the empowered awareness perspective. You inherently empower yourself when you detach from the emotional body and the limitations of all this corruption and all this mind control that has been pushed upon you and your generations upon generation. You've disconnected from that, but not only have you disconnected from that, you have seen that there's something that you need to do, that there's people that you need to connect to in order to move forward and in order to live the most out of your life in this moment, every day of your life, in every part of your reality while you're here. You've connected to your ancestors, the past. You've connected to yourself beyond the emotional body, the present moment. And you're connecting to yourself that is responsible for the next 7 generations, which is the future. The future generations are now a part of your momentary awareness. And that's an empowered space to be. That is where the system does not want people to be. Your power now comes from a space that does not rely on their systems. That in fact is aware of the depths of the corruption and the limitations within that system. And when you are in that space, you are unfuckwithable. You are no longer limited to the limitations, not only of the systems, but the realm itself. You have no fear of death. You have no fear of nightmares. You have no fear of any of these systems that are designed to attack you. You face it and you deal with it as it's presented to you, and you empower yourself with the energies and the experiences of your ancestors, of your expression of them right now, and your responsibility to your children and your children's children. Your responsibility to the next 7 generations. The system has zero connection to the next 7 generations. They are only concerned with how they are living in their lives right now. So they will suck the life out of every part of this reality for their own benefit without giving a shit about you, nature, or any other living being here. You exist only to be a part of keeping them on the pedestal that they have put themselves upon. And if you venture into an awareness that challenges their creature comforts, you will become a threat. This is why awareness is so important and such a big threat to this system.